My name is Mary. I'm 27 years old. After graduating from a nursing school, I currently work in a surgical ward. Life is busy. I started dating Kent, who is also 27, through an introduction by a friend who graduated from the same vocational school in our field. Kent works as a doctor at a cosmetic clinic. Despite our busy schedules, we continued to date and got engaged after 2 years. That might sound like everything is going smoothly, but there was an incident that painfully reminded me that life doesn't always go as planned. It happened when Kent and I visited his parents' house for the first time before we were married. My family's been doctors for generations. He mentioned that. Of course, their house was also big. Even though it's a predetermined path to inherit the family profession, becoming a doctor isn't something you can just decide to do. Generation after generation, which means that generations have cleared the hurdle of graduating from medical school. Impressive. And to maintain that, their family must be incredibly dedicated to education. I could tell by the sparkling clean entrance and the vase on the shoe cabinet, which was adorned with beautifully maintained Casablanca lilies. When we were shown into the living room, we were served coffee and sweets. I was told that the dishes, the coffee, and the sweets were all luxury brand products. The only thing I recognized was the sweets. I had never even heard of many of them. So, Mary, you work as a nurse at a general hospital, don't you? Kent's mother inquired. She is very much a doctor's wife. Yes, I do. I answered nervously. Are you a registered nurse, by any chance? Well, actually, I'm a practical nurse. There are registered nurses and practical nurses. I was surprised to be asked, but I guess that might be something a doctor's family would be curious about. However, it seemed to be an important factor in Kent's family. That's problematic, Kent's mother said. Kent's father also chimed in, saying, Indeed, that's troublesome. Is there a problem with that? I cautiously inquired. Practical nurses, unlike registered nurses, can't perform medical procedures without a doctor's orders. But since I don't work at Kent's family's clinic, it didn't seem like it was about needing an extra hand. Then, his parents started saying something quite peculiar. Being a practical nurse, your income potential is capped, isn't it? That would mean you'd have to lower your standard of living. And genetically, whether you can bear children who will maintain this family's lineage. Well, think it over. We received this gentle yet dismissive rejection typical of upper-class families and left Kent's house. We got more opposition than we thought, I said with a raised frown as we left Kent's house and walked down the road to the train station. But at that moment, I thought we could still make it work after 2 years together. After all, things often don't go exactly as planned in life. Right. But they didn't outright oppose us. And he said so, too. Encouraged by his words, I hoped that they would take the time to accept me. However, I was about to learn just how naively optimistic that was. 2 weeks later, Kent called me. What's up? Arriving at the cafe where he called me, I initially thought it was just our usual meet-up. But there was someone else there. That person was... Oh, hi, Emily. It was my senior colleague. Why was Emily here? The story went like this. After our visit, it seems Kent's father had said the following. It's difficult to lower our standard of living at this point, especially when gathering with fellow doctors. Having a practical nurse in the family might look less cultured. It's harsh, but in the medical field, they're considered bottom tier. This creates a disparity. In the end, it would make both Mary and you unhappy. He added. Mary works at California General Hospital, right? I know a doctor there. He will introduce you to another woman you are going to marry. And the other woman introduced was my senior, Emily. Emily, 32, older than both Kent and me. Indeed graduated from a well-known university with a degree in School of Nursing, and was smoothly progressing through a management track as a registered nurse. So, I thought about it. Like my dad said, practical nurses can't become managers, and financially, it would lead to poverty, right? And you probably wouldn't fit into an elite household either. That would make us both unhappy. Dad introduced Emily to me, but honestly, you can't really compete with her in terms of intelligence, income, or even looks, right? He must have prepared his speech, but I was blindsided and couldn't keep up. Unhappy, being a practical nurse means being unhappy. The words practical nurse and unhappy swirled in my mind. Then I looked at Emily. Emily was beautiful. Tall and well-proportioned. She gave a bewitching smile. Sorry, I took him from you. All I could do was hang my head. No, I wasn't good enough. Why? Why did it have to end like this? We had been dating for 2 years. Without a single fight. I learned to cook, and I loved him so much. Tears fell onto my skirt. Kent said this. So, we're all in agreement then. Let's continue to get along. The fact that you, with your bottom-tier line job, couldn't go on to marry me. He wrapped it all up well. We're engaged. Look at my Harry Winston's ring. Wow, that's so nice. Emily flaunted the ring. Her peers, nurses of the same age, squealed in delight. I walked past them in silence. That ring. Kent had chosen it. I felt nothing but emptiness. I had just returned my engagement ring. Though it wasn't the same brand, just days after returning mine, my direct senior was flaunting hers. There was nothing more heartbreaking. But, who would flaunt it like that? Emily's too much. The lack of consideration and restraint towards you makes me question her as a person. My colleague Sophie, who knew the situation, commented with a grimace. She's pretty, but she treats practical nurses like errand runners and always tries to one-up me by bragging about her promising future. I really can't stand her. To me, you're 100 times prettier. Just think of him as a guy with poor taste. Sophie comforted me. Indeed, Emily did seem to look down on practical nurses and had a bad habit of acting superior to her juniors, who didn't like her much. I usually kept my distance from her. But today, of all days, Emily made a point of coming over to me. And then she said, "Our wedding is set for June. I'm inviting all the nurses from the department, so despite everything, Mary, I hope you'll attend, too." I was speechless. I think anyone in my position would have reacted the same way. Don't worry, I won't mention in the ceremony's introductions that the groom dumped you for me. Emily declared loudly. By that point, it would be obvious to everyone that Kent had moved on from me to Emily. But I'm inviting all the nurses from the department. Please be there. She insisted. I was just standing there, stunned. Sophie was angry beside me. But even her voice seemed distant, fading away. Is there such a thing as this kind of harassment? Sophie exclaimed in outrage, hitting a nearby pillar. Yeah, but what can we do? Right, what can we do? Kent chose Emily over me. That's all there was to it. But accepting that reality, my emotions just couldn't keep up. From now on, as long as I was here, I'd have to hear about Kent every day, and eventually, Emily would become the head nurse. I would be under her thumb. There's nothing more miserable than that. So, I threw myself into job hunting during my work breaks. It was less about wanting a new job and more about desperately wanting to cut ties with the past. In hindsight, I think it was just an escape from reality. Fortunately, there's a nursing shortage everywhere these days, so I quickly found a new job. I decided to resign before the wedding. So, I ended up not attending the wedding after all. But the rumors still spread throughout the ward. And of course, the patients heard them too. You're leaving. A newly admitted child asked me with a sad look. You encouraged me so much when I was admitted with a serious injury. A middle school girl, who had been admitted with severe injuries from a traffic accident, said this as she sadly held my hand. But we'll see each other again. If you live with hope. Because this world is connected. I reassured her as I held her hand back. Despite saying that, I was definitely concerned about her. But since she was admitted after I had submitted my resignation, I couldn't postpone leaving. Luckily, Sophie had organized a farewell party for me with close friends from the department. So I asked her to take care of the girls' emotional needs during that time. Leave it to me. I'll take good care of her. Sophie assured me. And she said, don't worry about her, just leave it to us. Go ahead and move on to the next stage, and forget about your ex and that thieving cat. Years later, the close friends from that farewell party decided to have a reunion. It was like a reunion, and we met regularly, but that time was a bit special. Even after being kicked out of the bar at last call, we continued talking outside, chatting away until after midnight. That's when I was asked to do something. I had deleted Kent's contact from my phone, but one of the friends had his number and arranged for us to meet through her. That was what I was asked to do. "It's been a while," he said with a condescending smile. Not even a hint of embarrassment. "So, what are you up to these days?" At the cafe where we met, Kent ordered a coffee. And then he dumped a ridiculous amount of sugar into it. I knew it. But remembering such things irritated me a bit. And to be told by the man drinking that sickly sweet coffee. Still in a bottom-tier job? Well, I guess there's a cap for practical nurses. I downed my tea without any sugar or milk. Even after all these years, it irked me that he still used terms like bottom tier. Is there really a bottom or top tier to jobs? I thought about this when we broke up, but people like him look down on others to relieve their stress. Such folks will always belittle those they consider beneath them. Just watch, I'll crush you. I'll give it all back to you. After downing the tea and looking at the empty cup, I felt a switch flip inside me. I'm going to shake up and turn over your value system today. I slammed the empty cup down with a clatter, intentionally making noise. Then I looked straight into Kent's face and let it out. What? What are you talking about? My salary is now over $300,000. Wah. Kent froze, still wearing the mocking smile he had when he belittled me. I began to tell him about the path I took after we broke up. Just before I left the California General Hospital, a girl who had suffered facial injuries from an accident was admitted. She had broken bones too. Meeting her changed my life, I shared. What? I don't understand. It felt like a flurry of question marks were floating above Kent's head. I continued anyway. She would cry every day and night about her scars. She was underage, and her parents seemed opposed to cosmetic surgery. She had a crush. But in an instant, everything turned dark for her. It's tough, especially for a teenage girl. I've never felt more fulfilled as a nurse. Having studied anatomy as part of my nursing education really came in handy. I taught her how to apply foundation. I explained how green concealer can counteract redness and how to use shadows and highlights to bring out the bone structure beautifully. It was all about rehabilitation makeup. And she became so much brighter. It's amazing how makeup can transform someone like that. I was so happy to see her change. Coincidentally, my next job was in emergency nursing. There, I met many people who had been suddenly thrown into similar situations due to accidents. I taught them how to cover up the scars on their faces and arms. And then, especially women and mothers were so grateful, and I found a real sense of purpose in that. While working as a nurse, I also studied makeup. After we called off our engagement and I found myself single with some savings, I decided to open a studio for rehabilitation makeup. I don't heal wounds, but I offer a way to live with them every day. Hey, wait, so you're saying you've become a rival to me in cosmetic procedures? Rival? I scoffed. Rivalry would imply you have actual skills in cosmetic surgery and a thriving business, right? Well, Kent grimaced. Unfortunately, you can't really be considered a rival, not with your clinic, I said. I then tapped on my phone to show him. It was a screen of Google reviews. Kent's cosmetic surgery clinic was criticized for focusing on flaws, overcharging, and subpar surgeries. In contrast, my studio was flooded with positive feedback. I feel more positive, my scar doesn't bother me anymore. I think these results are going to hit you like a body blow, I remarked. Seeing Kent speechless, I continued with a rush of words. I've heard from clients who came to me after visiting you. You propose expensive treatments to people who just want a simple procedure and then suggest additional surgeries for flaws they weren't even concerned about, like a low nose, thin lips, or wrinkles, and inflate the cost. But, it's their choice to undergo surgery or not, Kent stuttered. Exactly, it's their choice. And many choose not to go through with your procedures and end up coming to my makeup studio instead, where I offer not just rehabilitation makeup but also general beauty and anti-aging makeup now. This review was particularly telling. I pointed out one of the critical reviews. One patient ended up with an uneven buttocks. She's currently visiting my studio. Really? Kent's face turned pale. She is suing us now, isn't she? He blurted it out before I even had to say anything. That saved me the hassle of explaining, which was quite convenient. Yes, she is. But you know, I've expanded my services. Not just makeup, but I've also integrated a gym, focusing on a holistic approach to beauty. She came to us quite down, but as she worked out and built muscle, her body line improved. And her mental state has become much more positive through small successes, I explained. So, with you being sued and lacking skills, how could you possibly be a rival to us? You should really get over yourself. With your bottom-tier skills. I emphasized the word bottom tier quite deliberately. Bottom tier. You said it, didn't you? Instead of saying, I say. That bottom tier skill comment? That came from a client at the gym, directed at you. Kent just bit his lip and fell silent. Wonder how it feels to be hit with the word bottom tier. I straightened my back, deliberately looking down on him. Then, my phone rang. It's done. Came the message from Sophie. After listening to her and hanging up, I turned to Kent with a blank expression and said, There's another piece of news today. It seems the results are in. What results? Kent asked back, visibly flustered. It was quite an undignified sight. You really don't know, do you? I laughed. Hasn't your wife told you anything? What about my wife? That's about your wife's rant. Practical nurses should pick up trash, they are slaves. That's problematic, isn't it? It is definitely a violation of labor laws. What? She could be dismissed on disciplinary grounds, so you can look forward to that. I placed the money for my drink on the table and smiled at Kent, who was sweating profusely. The difference in earnings between you and me at the time we were dating has probably reversed, and the gap has even widened. In the nursing world, rumors spread fast. Your wife probably won't be able to find another job easily. Especially after messing up at a big hospital like the California General Hospital. Kent seemed unable to believe it. Such a thing, no way. He muttered to himself, dripping with cold sweat. Today, I came to see you as part of a plan devised by all the practical nurses who had been looked down upon by your wife, I explained. Emily, who boasted about marrying an elite doctor because she was a registered nurse. I wanted to see the look on the face of the husband who provided the foundation for her arrogance when he hears about today's proceedings. Do you think it's insidious? But that's exactly what we, who have been looked down upon by both of you, naturally wanted to do. No. You thought you were the privileged class, loved by money? The husband was overtaken by the bottom tier he laughed at. And the wife was crushed by the bottom tier she mocked. How does it feel now? As I was leaving, I threw in one last comment. Also, you might not have noticed inside your building, but just 20 meters from your cosmetic surgery clinic, my studio stands. I've also set up a gym nearby, so when your clinic goes under, I'll buy the land. It's bound to happen soon, I said. Kent's eyes rolled back in shock. As I predicted, Kent's cosmetic clinic soon went under. The reviews and the stories from clients who considered his clinic but then chose us made it somewhat predictable. I opened a yoga studio on the clinic's former site. I heard Emily was fired over the labor dispute. While I was inspecting the site for the yoga studio's design, I encountered Kent and Emily. Perhaps they were there to sigh over the site's fate. Upon spotting me, Kent approached and said, Hi, long time no see. Congrats on expanding with a yoga studio. There's no need for congratulations if you don't mean it. I replied coldly. Hey, you're expanding your business, right? How about adding a cosmetic clinic too? Then I could. He started to suggest. I'm not interested in hiring incompetent doctors. I stated firmly. Well, then at least let me. Emily interjected. I don't need staff who lack teamwork and are prone to looking down on others. I flatly refused. I'm sorry, but I can't have a constructive conversation in the presence of the previous owners. I told the real estate agent who accompanied me for the inspection, and they kindly escorted the two out. This is how I successfully established a yoga studio near my makeup studio. A few years later, I was attending a wedding. Though I say this, it wasn't my wedding. It was the wedding of the girl who had received stitches on her face just before I left the California General Hospital. Thank you so much. Mary helped me stay positive. He told me that my facial scars were no big deal, that he only noticed when I told him about them. And he even said that he loved me with the scars on my face without makeup. She read the letter. Congratulations. Truly, congratulations. I shed tears. Life is not for those who look down on others negatively, but for those who look up and live positively. I will continue to work to support those who want to look up and move forward.